Let's move on to open source and the PSVR. You reviewed this week, Devendra. You spent, I don't know, how much time with it did you have?
At least like half a week, but a lot of time in VR and a lot of time writing and thinking about the state of VR, which is fun. Yeah.
So let's start with the big picture question. And, this is a little bit reductive, and we'll dig into it later. But should people go buy the PSVR? Just like straight yes or no?
No.
Okay.
That's pretty much the fundamental conclusion in my review. It is a good device, and it's a better consumer device than either the Rift or the Vive because it's more comfortable. Sony knows how to make consumer hardware. So instead of having a strap that you're basically tying around your head with Velcro, which is ridiculous and kind of looks insane, the PlayStation VR has this headband that's just cushioned on both sides. It has weights in the back, and it's balanced so well so that even though it's heavier than the Rift or the Vive, it actually feels lighter just because the weight is distributed kind of perfectly in your head. There's no weight resting on your nose or anything, which is the big problem with the Vive for me. That thing is so forward heavy, I can't wear it for too long. Yeah.
So that's sort of interesting because that's one of my issues with the VR headsets I've had is that they are so heavy. Especially, I haven't used the Vive, but the Rift I found uncomfortable after about, I don't know, 15 minutes probably. It started to get a little bit much.
And you tested the older Rift. The final version is actually pretty light. It's not that much heavier than the Gear VR.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But to hear that the PSVR is actually heavier but feels lighter because of the balance of it is super interesting and kind of crazy, and kind of tells me that people probably should have put a little bit more engineering and design time into these other VR headsets.
It's totally new territory. The way I'm actually thinking about it, this feels like the early web, right? And the Rift and the Vive feel like, I don't know, Prodigy and give me Pipeline, a really, really early ISP. And the PSVR
I'm
is
not even familiar with that one.
Oh yeah, that was one of my first ones. The PSVR is like AOL. It is okay, it's not great, but it's a better experience, and normal people can consume it and use it in their living rooms. And the other plus it has is better games. They have a lot of developers kind of building titles. They have 30 launch titles, I think, going to be 50 by the end of the year, and really good stuff too, like Arkham VR from Rocksteady. They're the ones who made the Batman games recently. There's Res Infinite, some other puzzle games that I really like. It's just overall a better experience. And the thing about the Rift and the Vive, I just haven't felt the need to go back and do much in them after my reviews. I've played some games, but there really hasn't been that much. They've been mostly tech demos. The PSVR, even though the quality is lower and the field of view is lower, it actually, it gives you more reasons to play.
So Dana, you edited this, I assume, as you edit all of our reviews, I believe.
Yes.
I don't think there's any that, I think I might have edited one over the last couple of months.
That would mean I'm on vacation or...
And you did go on vacation fairly recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you in going through the review and going through all of the product shots and stuff that made you, who are not a gamer, at least pique your interest a little bit in VR?
I keep coming back to Sony's success in having this much content at launch. I think you said 30 games to start with, a total of 50 promised by the end of the year. And oftentimes when there's a new kind of hardware and there needs to be content to go with it, it's a game of chicken and the egg. Not just with VR, but we saw this with 4K, 3D TVs. There's often a chicken and the egg, but somehow Sony seems to have won that game.
I mean, they've been doing this for a while, and some of these games can be translated to normal PS4 games, which is kind of nice. And I guess, without the Rift and the Vive, this couldn't have happened either. These games will actually make, I don't know, the overall VR market a lot better, because some of these games will eventually head to PCs, so you'll play them on the other headsets too. So this is what the VR market needs. It needs a cheaper consumer entry thing. It is cheaper than either of the competitors, but yeah.
It's interesting. I know that your recommendation is to not buy it right now, at least wait for price drops. IDC, the research firm, is predicting that among tethered VR headsets specifically, like the Vive and the Rift, that the PlayStation VR is going to be the top seller, which is kind of crazy because it hasn't even come out yet.
But
it doesn't go on sale till next week.
Price-wise, think about it. The PSVR starts
it definitely makes sense.
It starts at $400. The PS4 is $300. that's a lot of money. You also need to pack in the camera and the 2 Move controllers. So technically, the PSVR bundle most people will be buying is the $500
Because who owns the PlayStation camera
Nobody.
and the Move controllers?
It's kind of amazing to me that this old hardware could actually be translated to VR. They
And
must
was-
have like warehouses of this
Well,
stuff.
and to your point in your review, that some of those peripherals, like the camera and the Move controllers, were accused. People accused Sony of being derivative
Yeah.
and sort of copying other console makers' ideas, which maybe was true at the time, but it did work out. And the timing was perfect.
So weird. Like
Yeah.
the Move controllers are from 2009,
That
and
is
it's the same
crazy.
controller being used now. So that's insane.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
the basic premise of that sort of motion control, though, hasn't really changed much. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, we're still talking about light sensing and gyroscopes and accelerometers.
Depth
Like,
sensing, yeah.
the basic technology hasn't changed.
But now it's, Sony isn't being accused of copying the Wii U, and it's not being accused of copying the Kinect. We're praising it for having had the foresight, quote unquote, to have produced these ingredients that would
dumb luck is a wonderful thing.
come in handy later. Yeah.
Well, do you think it was dumb luck, or do you think it was they were like, we need to do a VR thing, and they went, you know what? We have all of these unsold Move controllers
Yeah.
and cameras. We should figure out a way to use them
mean,
in conjunction so that we
yeah.
make some of our money back.
The camera came out in 2013 alongside the PS4, and that's like a stereoscopic, like depth sensing camera, like the Kinect. And I never saw many developers support it, so I wonder if they had the idea for PSVR at that point.
I don't know
Yeah.
what games support that. The camera. Literally, the only one I know of off the top of my head is Alien Isolation, because
Yeah.
I started playing it the other day, and it had an option for like head tracking, and I went, "What is head tracking?"
I think
and
you
then
can
I had
lean.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I was like, "Oh, if you use the camera, you can peek around corners."
Which the Kinect did first. So
I was like,
yeah.
"That's weird and seems kind of not useful," but
Yeah,
sure.
that was the idea with the Kinect too, and like it was rarely used.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, what's the big standout for you though? Is it the weight? Is it the games? Is it the motion controls? Because I know that's something
It's
that
not really the motion controls. I mean, the motion controls are nice, and it's surprising that they have them out before Oculus even does. Like, Oculus has showed off their motion controllers. They're actually on their 2nd or 3rd generation motion controllers, but they haven't released them to the public yet. We may be hearing about that later today at
I
the
was just gonna
Oculus
say
Connect conference.
that
Yeah.
By the time this episode
Yes.
goes up, that may have changed.
But it's still amazing that Sony got it out first. It's a combination of all those things. But at the same time, that's a lot of money. Wait a year, and the price will be half, and you'll have better experiences to deal
Yeah.
with. Yeah.
But so if IDC is right, a lot of people aren't going to be taking your
Oh, no.
advice.
I mean, the
Yeah.
bundles have sold out from what we know. Like, Amazon's bundles for both the 400 and 500 have sold out for a long time. So people are buying it, people with a lot of disposable income.
but we don't know how many they made.
Yeah,
So they could have
exactly.
sold out, and they could have had 20 in stock.
Yeah,
for all we
exactly.
know.
Like, if
I mean,
if-
I'm sure it's not 20, but
If you're a hardcore gamer right now, you're probably better off investing in the PS4 Pro, which makes games look better, will support 4K TVs. And next year, you can buy the PSVR, and those VR experiences will look better on the Pro, too.
yeah. And let's be honest, there's probably going to be a PS4 Pro and PSVR bundle where you'll be able
Oh,
to get
yeah.
them both in one shot.
Yeah.
I mean, because they built the PS Pro probably looking at the VR
Yeah.
and at 4K.
Although from what we're reading from suppliers, like, they may not be able to build enough PS4 Pros to like survive the holidays. So that may not
that
happen.
would be a real black eye for Sony.
yeah.
Would it? Or would it actually help them from a PR perspective and be like, there's so much
They're
demand.
selling out.
We're selling out.
Yeah.
Well, it looks good. Mm-hmm. It's the
I
sort
think
of thing.
like gamers, they wait. They will wait, and they'll like sit in their pre-orders for this.
It looks good, but they need to do well this quarter.
Yeah.
Yep, they
Oh,
do.
That's very true. All right, one last question, which is, what is the best game you played on PSVR?
Best game, maybe. I mean, I did like being Batman
I-
just
I-
because
I love the idea of that.
it makes you Batman.
Who
and there-
thinks of that? That this is the idea for the game being you just look in the mirror
Well,
and say,
first
I'm
of all,
Batman.
5-year-old me thinks of that, Dana. And it is that like sort of, oh my God, you're in the early point of the game, you're like, oh, this is your Batarang. It's at your waist. There's like a medical scanner on your left side. There's your grappling hook on the right side, and you look down and there's the bat belt, like the utility belt, and like you could just pick it up with the VR controllers, and eventually you don't even need to look to access these things. There's a point where you're looking at a mirror and like the Batman model is just modeled as to where your head and arms are, so you can make Batman just do stupid things. But I'm surprised at how well that stuff has worked.
And you did literally just stare into
Yeah,
the mirror and
yeah.
go, "I'm Batman."
I'm Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the game needs work. Like, I'm surprised there's no like combat in the game. It is all Batman being a detective and doing the dirty work of being a detective, and not like kicking butt.
So like he's like going around
Yeah.
questioning witnesses and
Sort of
and
scanning
collecting
crime
samples.
scenes. Yeah, exactly. Collecting crime scenes. It's the dorky Batman work.
I mean, it's kind of fun Batman. Just gonna
It's
say that's
kind of
why
fun
that's why
Batman.
we like Batman. It's
Yeah.
not just because he kicks.
And
ass.
Rocksteady brought in their voice actors. So Mark Hamill back as Joker. I think this may be his
Yeah.
last Joker, but yeah, it's and it's good. Yeah, the voice acting is very good.